County Connections. I'm Bingham, and today's show is going to be about safety around the water. We all need to be aware of these kinds of things because we backpack, we fish, we raft, we kayak, and there are a lot of things that we need to know. So we're going to talk to some people from Swiftwater Rescue and Mountain Rescue about the best way to handle and cope with a situation if you find yourself in the drink.
Important things about the rivers and streams in our area is basically that water in these streams is relentless, it's unforgiving, and you can't underestimate the power of it. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds, and if you multiply that by the force of the river and the amount of water moving through the stream, you'll get a force of water that's hundreds or thousands of pounds moving down the river. Remember, it only takes 2 feet of water moving at velocity to lift a car up and float it down a stream. If you've got that kind of force working against you in knee-deep water, it may be something that becomes a problem for you when you're in the river. In this valley, we're fortunate that fire departments from Aspen, Snowmass, Wildcat, Basalt, and Carbondale all train in Swiftwater Rescue and have Swiftwater Rescue teams available. We train once a year at least as a group because a lot of the calls we go on require mutual aid from other departments. It's a very manpower intensive kind of a search and rescue. We also work with Mountain Rescue in these situations. So it's really a valley-wide group effort of volunteers and paid people to have these teams available.
A Mountain Rescue is not a Swiftwater team, but what we do if there is Swiftwater is we can back them up, search the banks, and help along the sides of the river. But Mountain Rescue is not our response is backcountry, and most of the actual Swiftwaters occur near roads. Most of the trails will run up drainages and they'll often cross the creek several times. In any given season, at any given time, that trail crossing may not be the best place to cross. What you have to keep in mind is anytime you cross a river, you're exposing yourself to risk. If you slip and fall, you can drown in very little water, you can get hypothermic. So there's some things that you should do to try and do it as safely as you can. Don't just take a walk like you're taking a stroll in the park. When you're in the backcountry, you need to be ready to be out there for a while. Well, snow bridges are problematic. It really depends on the season, and it depends a lot on the time of day. Generally speaking, on snow bridges, the earlier in the day, the better off you are, and that's true of any stream crossing. In the backcountry, because of flash flooding, which will typically happen as we get noon storms building up through the day and we have rain, or the heat up, the rivers will typically rise later in the day. It may be a good choice if the river's gotten really high and it's early in the season that you may want to wait till the next morning and just camp. Don't try to cross Swiftwater. You want to cross where you can see the bottom, where you've got good footing, good 2 points of contact. As you say, if you're going to scoot across a log, you're taking a risk. Water going across the top of a log is going to be slippery. If that's your only option, you're taking a risk. So you want to make sure you have 2 points of contact and be prepared to get wet.
Potential problems in the river could be boulder fields, rocks that are exposed, strainers, which could be any obstruction in the center of the river, on an island, or on the sides. They're typically made up of log jams. We'll demonstrate a little later how to deal with those, but what happens in a strainer situation is if you hit that, you'll suck you under the log jam, and usually there's not a good way out of that. If you happen to fall into the river, you want to assume a defensive swimming position. This is on your back with your head up, your feet slightly bent to avoid obstacles, looking ahead to see where you could possibly roll out and get to the shore. Another technique you can use when you're in the defensive swim position is to use your arms to ferry yourself in a direction either right side or left side of the river to avoid obstacles and to get yourself to shore. Remember, never put your feet down when you're in a fast current. Wait till you're in shallow water. If someone's close to shore in a fast current, your easiest and safest option is to simply reach out with your hand and catch the person as they go by and pull them in. Another option is to find a stick or any object you can use to reach out to the person and pull them in. If a person is too far out in the current to reach with your hand or with a stick, use a throw bag. Throw it across the person's chest. They'll grab the rope and the current will swing them into shore.
So I'm going to try to do this. I've learned something today, that the first thing you do if you have a backpack on is you unhook the clips. Now, for demonstration purposes, you obviously wouldn't have a PFD on if you were in the backcountry, but I'm doing it because I've never done this before and I want to practice. And it makes me a little nervous because this is a much wider creek crossing than I've ever done backpacking. So I would be really intimidated by this. But I'm going to hope that their technique works. And I'm surrounded by Swiftwater rescue people, so I guess I have nothing to lose. All right.
Using a stick to maintain your balance will make it much more effective and lessen the chance that you'll fall down. This is called the tripod position. Always keep 2 points of contact on the bottom, working yourself across the river in a slow manner. This is called a foot entrapment. It's a very dangerous situation where you will be washed over forwards into the current, and the weight of the current will keep you pinned down into the water. The only way to get out of this situation is to be rescued with a team using ropes that will pull you from behind and release your foot from whatever object it is trapped in. One method of getting a person who has an injury across the river is to have them sit on a stick and use a tripod position of 3 people to ferry the person across the water. The idea behind the defensive swimming is to avoid objects that are in the water that can either trap you or pin you or hold you against the current. If you come across a situation where you're going to run into a log or hitting an object is imminent, lay on your stomach and swim aggressively towards that object, trying to propel yourself over the top of it. This will keep you from becoming trapped or, worse yet, being submerged underneath the object. If you're rafting, kayaking, anytime you're on the water, you should have an approved Coast Guard PFD. It's your first line of defense against possible drowning or getting yourself in a bad situation. The other thing you should probably have with you if you're on the water is a rope bag. It's a very simple device to train to use, and it could probably save the life of you or someone you're with. If you see someone that has fallen in the water and looks in distress, you might want to give a call to 911 and make them aware of it. A lot of times, kayakers come out of their kayaks, people will fall out of rafts, and they self-rescue more often than not. But if it looks like someone's obviously in distress, go ahead and make the call to 911, get these teams mobilized and moving, and if it has a happy ending, we can always stand down.
Thanks for joining us on County Connections today. I'd like to thank all the guys at Swiftwater Rescue and Mountain Rescue for hopefully educating all of us. I hope you've learned as much as I have about crossing creeks, 2 points of contact, swimming in the river. The best thing of all is to just be prepared if you're going to be anywhere near the water. And if you get in a real bad situation, just know that we've got some very qualified people to help us out. So thanks again, and see you next time.